Ready.
Okay, thank you. You're on.
Okay, this is the January 20th, 2015 meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting is hereby called to order under authority of MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. I'll now call the roll for attendance. Dave DeMonico, absent. Bob Garner, here. Judy Keys.
Here.
Sam Strife, absent. Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Doug Watson, absent. We have a quorum present. In the absence of Mr. Watson, so we presume that Commissioner Turner
Anybody like
as
to be
vice-
acting chairman besides? And I shall be acting chairman.
The acting chairman tonight.
By consensus.
I second it.
Okay, if I may, I'd like to request administratively consideration and hopefully approval of my payroll. And just for your review, Kurt, is my hours.
I need that on the corner here.
Yeah, if you could sign right down there and just, and fill in the date.
Today's the 20th.
Yes. Thank you. Also for your consideration in the packet that was distributed is a draft of annual report of the commission for inclusion in the upcoming production and publication of the town report.
Would you like us to read it now and give you feedback, or read it and get back to you, or when is it? How much time is there? We'll get back to you at the next meeting.
Well, we have a full 10 minutes until quarter of
All right,
for this.
try to read it.
Probably most of the substantive changes are contained on page 2. We kind of adopted pretty standard presentations for the first page. read the backside?
Yeah.
All right.
Looks fine to me.
Thank you.
One item I'm not sure of on page one bulleted item was says one order condition extension. Should I say order of condition extension, or does it matter?
Well, technically, it is an order of conditions.
Okay. That's all I found.
Is there any reason to sometimes refer to it as Conservation Department and other times as Commission?
That'd be consistent.
Well, actually, yes, when there's an attempt to make a differentiation between the staff
Okay,
performing functions as well as sometimes a differentiation between administrative functions that aren't necessarily related to the commission's authority under the Wetlands Protection Act or the town's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, so.
Okay.
um,
okay, that makes
So
sense.
that's why that
Okay,
creeps in there, because I tried to be careful in projecting when I'm doing something or when the commission is
I
doing
suspected
something
as much,
or
but-
more directly, yeah.
Good.
I'm gonna stop babbling, I think you understand what my point is.
We get the idea.
I think that's a good job, but I don't have a problem with it. I gather that's the sense of everybody here.
No, I think it was excellent.
Looks fine to me.
I recommend sending an email to the missing members, especially Doug, and saying that the
Right, and I'll request if
members
they,
present were
yeah,
pleased with it, and
and I'll ask if they have any
Yeah.
thoughts or input on it. Yeah, the selectman's office has requested its submittal by the 30th of the month, so there's plenty of time for the missing commission members to take a look. So, excellent suggestion, thank you. And we actually have 5 minutes left. So I previously had mentioned to the commission about the desire to get boundary markers and additional trail markers in anticipation of a trail network being established on the Girl Scout property, as well as boundary markers that could be utilized on a number of different open space property, Hunsley Hills, Pingree Farm Conservation Areas, some other areas where we've had some encroachment. And so the commission has a quote in front of them that I got today. I realize that there's a couple of different items on there. Just to kind of condense it a little bit. On Hunsley Hills, I used non-reflective 3/4 square white plastic background with black arrows. The second item down on the quote, the 203A3 .050 is the same gauge plastic. It's their heavier plastic. I'm suggesting the acquisition of yellow background with black arrows in the quantity of 1,000. Just because on Hunsley Hills, I used 400 to mark the trail network on Hunsley Hills. And we ordered 500 because of the price break. As you can see, I did get a price of 500, but I think 1,000 would be more realistic because acreage that has the potential for the trail network on just the former Girl Scout property is probably, would easily take 500, if not more, to be honest with you, in adequately doing it. Granted, we haven't talked about the establishment of a network, but I found that the Girl Scouts actually did have a large loop network on there, and I've been doing some exploring trying to find it. But there's the potential for, I think, definitely more mileage of trails to be established on it.
And they're not gonna spoil anyways.
Right, they don't go bad. They can also be used, you know, we want to do some trail marking and stuff on the Bradstreet Farm property. Pingree Farm, there's an interest in putting a boardwalk over the Mill River to connect the two Pingree Farm conservation areas. So that's something that's developing. So anyway, that would be my recommendation on that particular item. The other item for consideration.
Before we leave that.
Oh, sure.
So you're recommending buying 1,000?
Yes. Of
So
the 050 yellow.
And the N050?
Pardon me?
And the N050? Well, I guess they all do.
Well, that's
the gauge.
I did get quotes on the custom sign in the lighter gauge, but this is the lighter gauge, but this is an example of the yellow with the black arrow. Not that I found that there's a problem with the white and black. The white and black seems to have extremely good contrast, and if you've been to Hunsley Hills, I'm just thinking that the yellow and black might actually allow a little greater visibility and the possibility of spacing them out, especially when you go through the woods.
Okay, so would you like our approval of this amount that you're,
Yes.
$614?
I have,
Another one there too.
yeah, there's a second item for us to talk about that
Okay.
has some design considerations and text considerations. So this would be for marking the trails. So the other anticipated use is marking the boundaries. And this is their standard stock property boundary marker. If one order, and I believe a quantity of 500 would be sufficient for this. This is their stock item. This is 30 cents per item in the quantity of 500. It is not on the quote.
Oh,
On the quote, well, because
wait, that's the one we saw, okay.
so that's 30 cents. Getting a custom one, the price difference goes up to 51 cents per item. And I was talking to him today because I wanted to find out, I mean, they can do pretty involved, fancy signs, and I'm not sure that's really necessary. I'm proposing, forget the town seal part, I'm proposing a square, it's tilted on edge like that basically says Town of Raleigh Conservation Area property boundary. So Town of Raleigh going along the border, property boundary along the border or edge, and then conservation area in bigger, bolder letters right in the center. Now, I had you'll see my sketch proposes the town seal on it. I sent them what I had for an electronic file of the town seal, and they said they couldn't use it. That they'd have to bill us an additional $60 setup charge over and above the already $45 setup charge. And so I didn't think,
The seal was
I
that.
didn't
critical?
think the seal was that critical, yes, to what the intent is of those markers, which is to signify that it's the
And
boundary
actually,
of
at that
conservation
size,
area.
you couldn't probably read it.
No, it probably
unless
kind
you
of
got
looked
rid
like
of
a
it,
black circle, yeah.
So was this actual size on the bottom, pretty much?
yeah. Close.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Kind of, okay, so the
Well,
seal would have been
actually-
only like a 1-inch diameter.
See the size of the word boundary here,
Yeah.
that block text, that's what I envision conservation would say with an
Mhm.
area underneath it. And then along those edges, it would be property boundary and town of Rowley.
Okay. So the size is still, as above, 3 3/4 by 3/4?
Yes, it's
Okay.
a square, yeah, I'm suggesting the same size,
Mhm.
again, out in the woods or whatever, the trail markers seem to stand out. I think a lot of other places use boundary markers that are that same size. If they're putting a lot of text on it, like sometimes Massachusetts Audubon, for example, at Rough Meadows, does like a 5x7, but they have all sorts of text, and then they have smaller intermediate boundary markers that are like this, almost
Mhm.
this 3 1/4 by 3/4 square size. But since we don't have a lot of text to try and, try to express rules,
Mhm.
we really just want to mark the boundaries. My suggestion is
Well, with the text you're trying to place on this size of a sign to include the town seal, seems like it would just disappear. So, I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, that's not an option.
Yeah.
in
And it was, I really didn't feel comfortable with
Mhm.
getting charged that much for
Sure.
something. I mean, the important thing is to say that it's a conservation area and that it's a boundary and it's town property. So
Right.
those are the three things that the text would accomplish at this point, so.
And you're
So
comfortable,
the
you're
oath-
comfortable with the quantity of 500?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Oh, we thought of more.
Would there be a setup charge?
Yeah, there's a
next time?
$45
No,
setup
the
charge.
next time.
Oh, the next time, no.
Okay,
No,
that's
once they
it.
do the setup once, that's
Yeah.
it.
Now, is that
Any reorders?
the setup charge, the 44?
No, that is for the fasteners, that's for the aluminum nails.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
And so your total
So my,
cost
Would be plus 65.
$614.
yes,
Yeah,
which
well,
could
plus
come out of
one.
the Onsley Hills management account. There's, I think, $1,400 in there, since this would be used for the management of that property and others.
All right. Everybody comfortable with Ben's recommendation?
I think it's a very good idea.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, the way he has it laid out here.
I have a recommendation to move approval of the recommendation in the estimated amount.
I'll make that recommendation.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Got? Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay.
Thank you for getting the quote on time. You got it today, right?
Oh, geez.
Well, I sent him an email, because everybody says communicate via email. I sent him an email, and dollars to donuts, I didn't hear from him, I didn't hear from him. I bet you it went into their spam folder
For sure.
inadvertently, so I called him and got that. So, sorry for the,
That threw you off already, huh?
pardon me?
That threw you off already.
So I need to give the chair now the legal notice.
Sorry for the delay. So the legal notice of the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Law 131, Section 40, as amended, and the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held on Tuesday, January 20th, 2015 at 7:45 PM at Room 5 of the Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street to consider a notice of intent application filed by Daniel Cook for proposed installation of a replacement subsurface sewage disposal system, possibly within 200 riverfront area of the Mill River and the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 27 Glen Street, map 21, parcel 20 in Raleigh, Massachusetts.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, I have the certificate of mailing and the public notice.
Great, thank you.
Your name is?
Oh, I'm Brian Farmer from BLS in Byfield, Massachusetts. I reside in the town of Danvers.
Oh, good, you've got a
Go
color.
ahead.
Put
Is
that
that a little bit
on.
of shooting match up? Exactly. What we have here is an existing single-family home, circa 1771. That's what the plaque said. They have an existing septic cesspool, which is proposed to be abandoned. You can see this is the Mill River down here. This is the 200-foot setback line here, this pink line, and a 100-foot setback from the river. We're showing the 50-foot setback. Well, this is a wetland, it's a drainage swale, and this appears to be more of a drainage swale, but it is, the groundwater is elevated, so this is our 50-foot setback, and this is the only area outside a 100-foot setback from the wetlands, this triangle. So, essentially, we're proposing to crush and fill the existing cesspool, add a new septic tank and a pump chamber, and we're proposing the Presby environmental pipe to reduce the field size as much as possible. We did do 2 test pits out here. This was a silt loam. It really didn't perk. And some of that blue-green material, and we did find some material here that perked 59 minutes an inch. So it's not the best soil out there. And so that's one of the main reasons why the field is as large as shown here. Now, this septic design has been reviewed by the Board of Health and has been approved. And we're here before the commission to answer any questions you may have. This was the best that we felt we could do at this time.
This came before us on first.
Yes. Yes, because when it was discovered that in a sense the dwelling in the lawn is ringed, surrounded by wetland resource areas, yes. And so just in a verbal review for you tonight, under the riverfront regulations, a lot with an established dwelling in existence before August of 1996, which 1771 certainly qualifies as that, there aren't, or there is an exception for establishment of a Title V compliant subsurface sewage disposal system to service the structure. And the attempt was made. The first soil evaluations were performed, what was felt away from sensitive resource areas in an attempt to try and locate the field back up on this portion of the site. The soils did not work out, and so soil evaluations were done down here on a progressive basis in order for them to establish an area that would be adequate for siting the field, in an attempt to try and minimize going into previously undeveloped wetland resource area, i.e. 100-foot buffer zone to wetlands and riverfront. So in this situation, the normal regulatory restrictions of square foot of disturbance in the riverfront area and having to do an alternatives analysis does not apply because of, obviously, there's an established dwelling here. You need to have a Title V compliant subsurface sewage disposal system. So in that regards, the system is located relatively close to where the flagged wetlands line. Turn this line to green, and this is basically bordering vegetated wetlands and then bordering vegetated wetlands. This is really the riverfront delineation here with the river channel going along there. That's the closest proximity to the field. There was previously a shed here. The representation of the edge of the woods is relatively accurate. There is a wooden platform here with a roof that may have been used as just a place to sit on their lounge chairs and look at the river, watch the mallards as we were doing today when we were there. This is going to be relocated. This is a walled, enclosed, detached shed, which is on blocks, which can be repositioned someplace else. There is going to have to be some clearing of the woods in order to put the field in and do the appropriate grading for the mounted system. Major point of discussion with the commission here tonight is if the commission wishes to utilize this opportunity to establish some no-cut, no-disturbance areas within the undeveloped portion of this property, i.e. the wooded forested portion that borders the Mill River, and basically would start from approximately here and go over to this side. There's no reason to relocate that if the property owner doesn't want to, and in fact we learned tonight that the property is, this work is ongoing in order for the property to be sold.
So it looks like it's its only option.
Well, yes, in terms of doing work, but it's basically kind of discretionary. The commission usually uses this opportunity to seek to establish no-cut, no-disturbance areas to protect the sensitive wetland resource areas that are there, but doesn't hold fast to the standard of 25-foot width or more of the no-cut, no-disturbance area. On previously developed lots of times we adopt a strategy of variable, and we configure it to basically conform to areas that haven't seen use and to try and put some type of buffer into the most sensitive locations, i.e. the riverbank, edge of wetlands, and just provide some type of guidance. On some projects we utilize the erosion control. I'm not sure that's 100% appropriate, where this shed and this area here has basically been cleared and pruned of the understory in order to facilitate going over here and viewing the river. But there is the opportunity certainly to have, I'm not sure what the offset is there, 72 feet to the tank. What is it, about 40 feet maybe to there?
Scales.
That's a 20
Yeah,
scale,
it's about
right?
20
Yeah.
scales, 40, I would say. 30.
We got 35. So we could establish a 25-foot no-cut, no-disturbance zone that then comes up, hitches into the erosion control line, goes around here, and comes over to here, just to protect the wooded, undeveloped portion of the property.
Is this wooded here?
Yes,
Yes. And this is wooded?
yes.
I'd like to see that continued up to the border of the property.
Okay, yeah.
Following the
So follow the edge of the woods
swale.
up along, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't go into the swale and manicure and maintain it anyway. It's basically overgrown, just as long as it conducts water, I think, which is what it's doing.
I know there's not a lot of topography lines here, but it seems like the hill flows down mostly through here. And I think this swale was probably cut in just to maintain the lawn area.
So just some other points, and I believe the commission would be satisfied with just the establishment of posts with signage on it. I'm not sure that there's any real need to go in for fencing or whatever because of the swale there. You don't really go in there anyway, it kind of forms a natural barrier. And then this area down here, it's relatively light and open under there because it's a mature forest, and so the posts would be visible and can be adequately spaced, the 30 to 40 feet that we normally space them.
Sounds pretty good to me.
And we'll do that as a field determination at the time of the project. Now, the plans here did specify hay bales used as erosion control. Because of the topography and the nature of the work, I suggested to Mr. Farmer and Mr. Grasso, when we were out there, that I'd like to specify silt fence with straw wattle on the face of it, facing the work site.
On the upland side?
On the uphill side, yeah. Just because of the bringing in of fill and the grading and the fact that it slopes down and goes down towards the river. Not that hay bales wouldn't do the job, but they don't have as much height, and they don't, unless they have good solid ground contact, they don't provide as much of a barrier as digging in the skirt.
So do you recommend the silt fence around the entire perimeter and ground that I see here, or just on the?
Just in this portion,
Okay.
we're there, and then continue with straw wattle across the lawn areas. That
Right.
seems that would be very adequate or a silt sock or straw wattle.
Okay.
In
But
the-
Good idea.
you're adding another measure of protection for the
Only
slope,
where,
for the
yeah,
proposed slope area.
where the topography slopes and where mounded material
That makes sense.
is going to be brought in.
This is going to be level with the top of the ground, sloped at 2% angle, is that what I read on these plans?
I believe it's 3%, or 2%, you're right.
Yeah, I was going to
2%,
say,
yeah.
somewhere there's a note that talks about 2% slope off the top to shed water.
Yeah, typically like the top is like 0.5% from the center.
So slopes either side?
And the slopes, well, 3
Here it
feet
is, right
every
here.
1 foot.
Finished surface of the leaching area shall be graded to assure water
Water
runoff
runoff, 2%
minimum
minimum.
slope.
Or does that get grassed or seeded after you?
Yes.
Only other recommendation I have is I would like to incorporate as a condition that there's some scattered debris off in the woods there, a couple rusty barrels, old pieces of some type of shafts or something. So I just suggest that we have that hand picked up and appropriately disposed of.
Ideal time to do it.
Anything that's historic and antique, they can take care of. Other than that, the steel, you can.
The mill too, I
Recycle
think it was
it.
a stone was interesting, a mill stone.
I'd like to have the existing shed relocated up there somewhere,
Right, we can,
Rather than.
Now-
rather than down in here.
this existing shed, the one that's going
Yes.
to be removed, sure, we can specify that it goes to a lawn, grassed, maintained
Yeah.
area of the property. Since almost all of it's within the commission's jurisdiction, that wouldn't be an inappropriate request.
Anybody in the audience have any thoughts, comments? Commissioners, any further?
No, I think those are good
I think
comments
that's,
that Brent made.
Do I have a motion to close the hearing and approve this application along with the discussion? and-
Issuance of an order of conditions,
Issuance of an
with
order of
conditions
conditions.
as discussed.
Yes.
So motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Negative? None? Unanimous?
Great.
Thank you.
You need him for you?
Now I gotta write the thing up and stuff. This is for the 8 o'clock request for a continuance.
Do they have to keep requesting for continuance? Oh, really, yes.
This is a request for continuance with regard to 56 Newburyport Turnpike, map 7, parcel 12, Mark Savory. Please request continuance to February 10th meeting. Our engineers have made considerable progress with the planning board and their consultant. I anticipate revised plans will be available prior to the February meeting. I'm not sure, however, if the planning board will have made a decision by that time. Is that decision necessary for CC to close the hearing? Thanks. Liz Dupre, owner, Clearwater Environmental. The answer is? No.
We can talk that, but while, if I may recommend the commission act upon the request for a continuance and just.
That's what's requested, sure.
Do I hear a motion to continue this to the next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Unanimous?
So, yeah, I'm not sure, she sent me a subsequent email, this is Liz Dupree of Clearwater Environmental. Can you inquire at this next meeting to see if the commission is expecting us to reconvene with a planning board approved plan or just a revised plan that still may be under planning board review?
Seems to me we need to know what the planning board does on this.
Yes, on the one hand, but on the other hand, this might be the only opportunity for the commission to weigh in because we don't know how and what they're doing to react to the concerns of, especially the stormwater concerns and stuff. And so it might be, I don't.
If I remember, they've already proposed certain changes to the original application with regard to paving and things like that.
Right, but we haven't
And
seen.
building
We haven't
positioning.
seen any we haven't seen any of this on paper, so to
Right.
speak, on a plan. I'm just thinking that it's an opportunity for the commission to know where the project has headed since they've been working with Mr. Graham, Larry Graham as the technical reviewer and the planning board. I don't know why this certainly doesn't have the potential to slow commission approval down. And if substantive things are still being worked out with Mr. Graham, the commission doesn't have to make a decision just because the applicant comes in with the revised plan. So this is all I had to go by was the email, so I don't really know.
Well, what's your recommendation? How would you like this to be?
If they have a revised plan to present to the commission, I think
Yeah,
they would
see
be
it.
well advised to come in and present it, so we know.
Regardless of when the
I
planning
don't
board-
think they need to have final approval from the planning board to speak to the commission.
That's fine. Anybody,
No, we need to see the drawing.
Yeah.
all right?
Okay, so I'll respond, saying that it would be good to come in and present the revisions. Thank you.
And I assume that just because the planning board signs off on their order of conditions, that if they want something that's inconsistent with wetland standards, that we can still require further change.
Right. Or we just impose our own conditions as long as they aren't contrary or detrimental to any conditions by the planning board, who does have a different perspective on some things.
Right, but if the planning board inadvertently proposed something or required something that was inconsistent with our wetland bylaws,
Right.
we'd have to sign off.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to speculate that that would occur because this is in a previously disturbed site and it's worked in the 100-foot buffer zone, that I don't think it has any potential to get any closer to unaltered bordering vegetated wetlands than it's already configured to be, and it's mostly stormwater issues that needed to be addressed.
Okay,
But, you know, which is another reason why coming in would be good, so that we know specifically instead of speculating.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe we're at 8:15. Mr. Chairman just wants to read the agenda item. I believe the gentlemen are in the audience to have their
Shall do.
informal discussion.
and we're 1 minute early. Awesome. Had you worried for a while. This is informal discussion with regard to a proposed project phasing or changes to order of condition number 63-515 for 54 Haverhill Street, map 15, parcels 87 and 88. John Giannino for Howard P. Schmidt, formerly Peter Lopes owner. The proposed construction of a common driveway with a wetlands crossing and associated wetlands replication. Proposed relocation of a sewage disposal system. Proposed construction of 2 single-family dwellings with associated utilities and sewage disposal systems, and a driveway to access a single dwelling. I find that a little confusing, but I'm sure we'll get all that straightened out.
Well,
Table?
that's from the description from the issued order.
I'm John Janino. This is Jack Rivers. He's my go-to guy in all this stuff because this is all new to me. I'm the son-in-law of Howard Schmidt, and we have recently moved in with them to take care of them, my mother and father. And this is what he has acquired, my father-in-law, Peter Lopes' property. So everybody knows that name, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, and this is where Jack will help me, there's an order of conditions on this whole piece of property that all this conservation stuff be done for this, to get to this back lot. We don't want to touch that lot at all. We don't want to build back there. We want to actually build on this lot over here. We want to put a house there. But to do that, the original order of conditions has to be met. That's my understanding, before we can touch that lot. We want to amend that so we can, we're gonna stop everything at a certain point and not go back to there.
Under the standing order of conditions, the first order of business, as legitimately was, to address the wetlands crossing, preserving the soils and plant life, whatever, and doing the reconstruction here of the wetlands, okay? And so, but what we're seeking to do at this point is to build the driveway, the common driveway, up to approximately station 875, which is actually the end of the macadam, the end of Hut Top, and beyond there goes a compacted, like a Roma pack or a stone pack. driveway that goes to service the last house. And if and when the last lot would be developed, then and only then would the wetland crossing be addressed. We wouldn't be crossing the wetland at this point, but if it had to be, then that would be appropriate to do that. And it might never be crossed. The wetland might never be altered, is a real possibility at this point. So what we're seeking to do is to modify the standing order of conditions so as to allow us to phase in drawing up shot of the wetland crossing and build the first house in and leave the other to the future.
Then this house would also be to house us and the in-laws at the same, and another house, we could sell off the rest of it, sell the rest of the property.
There is also another issue that we have relative to the existing septic system in the front of the existing home, which does in fact encroach over onto the 50-foot strip that is the frontage for this Lot B. And that needs to be addressed, either modified in place or moved to the back. And it was approved to go in here under the subdivision plan. I'm really not sure what conservation had done relative to that. It shows a 53-foot setback from the BVW, and of course Title V, and looking at 100 feet, and 100 foot is the standard. And I was trying to review what waivers had been asked for, and maybe the Board of Health has something on that, and we will be meeting with them as well. But so far as the commission is concerned, the two questions that we have, or actually three questions. First off, we would like to modify the order of conditions so as to avoid doing any wetland crossing and or wetland disturbance on a first phase, carrying into the convenience stop, which allows us to build the hydrant and the turnaround for fire apparatus and everything at the end of the macadam, which standing alone satisfies all of the planning board issues. And so we need to move the septic system to this rear point.
Why do you need to do that?
Because it encroaches onto this property line, and the planning board called for it not to be encroached onto that.
I mean,
In
the
such
existing
fashion.
one encroaches, or the?
Actually,
The
what
existing-
I've heard the Board of Health say is that that is not an approved. Once they put a property boundary right through the subsurface leaching field that serves that dwelling, they went into an unapproved situation where the Board of Health cannot, I don't believe, can legally approve an occupancy permit. I think, but I would have to defer and just tell you that it's under Board of Health purview, and they need to comply with the Board of Health, and I believe that's where the issue is with
So
that.
there's a new property line to be established? That's the issue?
No, the new property line was established, and
Okay.
it made that a non-conforming
Okay.
system servicing
So it's
the
not in
dwelling.
compliance now?
Yeah,
Right, made
yeah.
that one not.
It made part of the field not on the lot where the dwelling is.
But did
Yeah.
it, but did it modify that as well?
That's
Not,
the new one.
again, this is
Yeah.
Board,
No, I
This
understand.
is the
Okay.
conservation, this is the plans that are referenced in the order of conditions.
Right, but you're talking about taking this and moving this back.
No,
here.
no,
No,
this
no,
is
no,
where
no,
he
no.
wants to go. This is a proposed,
No, they don't
septic
have
system.
approval for that from the Board of Health yet.
Board of Health has to approve it. I believe that
Yeah, the local
Conservation
location.
had addressed this, and I'm not sure how the.
We don't have to address it, you don't understand.
Well, you have a hundred.
We approve those plans.
That plan,
and
so
then-
that is tantamount
No,
to.
let me finish.
Okay.
We approved that plan and said it had to meet Board of Health requirements.
Okay,
So that gets us off the
okay,
hook.
good.
And if you
That's
change the
fine.
plan, you gotta give us a revised plan that's
Fine.
compliant with the Board of
Then-
Health.
Then that would satisfy that, and our only issue is with Board of Health. So far as that's concerned. The phasing, dealing with the driveway up to Station 875 approximately, and delaying any crossing, thereby eliminating the replication. So it doesn't get into that. If this were approved as a 2-lot subdivision instead of a 3-lot subdivision, it would have been designed just like that without the wetland implication. And that's really all we're looking to do, is to step back to.
So for the
that.
commission's edification, I'm gonna do a little translating here. And
Thank you.
again, not to put Mr. Rivers or anything on the spot here, but there's a lot of complexity to this that isn't under the commission's jurisdiction. What I'm going to try and translate is just from the commission's purview. The commission has issued an order of conditions that incorporates this plan with its proposed activities. Within our order of conditions, we defer as much zoning, Board of Health things, all, and planning board requirements, all to those appropriate boards. And we just get off the hook, so to speak, by saying that you have to comply with all appropriate town rules and regulations. So if something isn't adequately depicted on this plan at this point in time that has to do with another board or department's requirements, the applicant is on the hook to provide a stamped plan that ends up being compliant with those other boards. So what is being discussed tonight, and one of the reasons why they are before the commission tonight, is because the order of conditions as issued, whenever there is wetlands filling and replication, requires the wetlands filling and replication to be done before any sign-off can be given on a building permit for any structure or dwelling covered by this order. So they are asking, I'm just going to translate here and try to make it in general terms. So they are asking the commission, because the order right now says that before they can do anything besides put in erosion control and start clearing, they have to accomplish the wetlands crossing and the wetlands replication. Those things are tied together, as we just saw in a recent article, investigative reporting. Those two things are tied together and required to be done first, because that is the best way to guarantee their success and the fact that they get done. You're looking at half the plan here, because it may be better to look at this plan, because this shows you the second dwelling, the first dwelling, the crossing, the vernal pool, the restricted vernal pool habitat, the wetlands replication area, which was configured to match in over here and blend itself into pre-existing wetlands to give it the most chance of success, the revegetation and closing in of the old woods road that goes into the vernal pool habitat area. So there were a lot of environmental restoration and remediation requirements that needed to be done first. So the kind of choice the commission is being asked tonight is whether they would consider either modifying or amending the order of conditions to allow the construction of this dwelling and the driveway. And then it would be up to your discretion about what associated environmental activities you might, but basically foregoing doing the replication and foregoing doing the crossing until later on. Now, if the order of conditions is amended to do that, that is an actual process where they come in, they refile. It's basically like filing a notice of intent again, except you're filing to change and modify the order of conditions. The other choice is for the commission to just allow this as a modification. There are issues with doing it either way, but the biggest thing for the commission to kind of grapple with is if the applicant is given the option to do the rest of the driveway and the wetlands filling and the second dwelling off in the future, how, since they've been allowed to do one of the dwellings or whatever, how much or what kind of requirements should be possibly changed? To change conditions in the order, you need to amend it. If you only allow a modification because the project is still possibly going to be the same, with the same activities, the same type of things done, the big liability here is how do you assure that the project proponent will ever do the restoration and the replication work that's done. Presently, the order of conditions does not require a bond to be issued. That is what the commission in the past has sought as a way of making sure that replication or remediation, or in this case, replication, remediation, and restoration all get done, is the commission has in the past, when an applicant has asked to quote-unquote do that later or do that at their discretion, the commission has imposed a bond so that there are monies held and available in case the commission needs to step in and say, okay, you're in violation of the order because you're finishing, you're not doing this whole project, and you're not taking responsibility for those particular activities. So if you amend the order, you would have the ability to look at the conditions that were imposed and to change the sequencing that was required and to incorporate a condition that would require a bond being held in place in order to do that work. It also would allow you the ability to scrutinize some of this, such as the replanting of this woods road. You may still want to have that done because the driveway is coming all the way down here.
Yeah.
And if that woods road isn't blocked off and the no cut, no disturbance barrier isn't put in place, people can still go whizzing down the roadway. It's not going to, restore itself.
I don't see any problem with doing the reconstruction of that section of the woods road. That probably makes good sense to do that, like as you say, during this first lot. It's just the wetland crossing and the replication area that is really an issue. And that wetland, it would be a shame to have a situation where you go in and change the wetland and move it over and so on, and then that never gets done. You know, it's,
I think there's a way to address that. I think another approach to this, which is a little slightly different than what you just talked about, Brett, is to have the commission approve a modification and a termination of the order of conditions at this point. Is that road paved right now?
No, it's
No.
woods, it's woods,
It's
not
still-
even.
And so so that would, and require a future new order of conditions if they wanted to
Well,
do
okay.
That was my, I wanted to ask
Okay,
that
well,
question.
That is still, that can still be done, but it needs to be done via amending the order.
I'm
I
here
mean,
for advice as well, I just
I
wanted you to
mean,
know that.
In all honesty, what they have proposed to the commission tonight, I don't believe could be accomplished without amending the order, because the requirements and the conditions in the order were such that they were sequenced and they were predicated on the wetlands crossing and the replication area being done.
And there were 2 lots in the
Two
original order.
lots, 2
Okay.
dwellings,
Okay.
whatever, but again, it specifically has a condition in it, at least one, if not multiple conditions, that keep me from being able to sign off on a foundation permit for any dwelling until the replication area and the crossing is done. So the only way to change the fact that those conditions are written that way is to amend the order and quote-unquote therefore change them. And yes, Kurt is suggesting a further change in the conditions of just stopping the project prior to that crossing. In other words, only servicing the first dwelling. Again, we can certainly do that because of course those are still regulated wetland areas in there. And the applicant to propose anything, if they wanted to do the same second dwelling with the driveway accessing it and the crossing, they'd obviously have to file for it.
And that's what I kind of want to deal with. I don't
But
want to
it
worry
does-
about this.
But it
backyard.
does also allow the commission to say,
Yeah.
you know what? No,
no,
no.
yeah, no.
We're not,
Right.
when you come back and talk to us 5 years from now about a crossing, the commission may say no.
Well,
Okay.
that's fine, because now, I don't know if I'm overstepping, I don't know if you want me to shut up, Jack, just tell me,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
you want me to shut up?
Yeah.
Well, I just, all I'm concerned about is being able to build, if we can build here as soon as possible,
Okay.
because,
The fastest way to do that, in my opinion, is to go ahead as Red has said, take that, do the replicate the area and build it up to the station that we want to, 875 station. And get the permit on that, which I believe would be issuable, even though the whole project hasn't done. Where it
Oh,
relates to
yeah,
that one.
I mean, not
could issue
not
that.
asking us for a foundation permit for the second dwelling, that's fine with
Yeah,
us. I
right.
mean,
But I mean, not constructing the balance of the,
but we don't have to even do this though, right? We won't have to do that at all, we don't have to do that.
Well,
I don't want to pay for that.
if you
The
don't
thing
want to
is,
change
Kurt-
anything, if you don't want to open the
no,
order.
no, I do not. I'd rather hold on to the order of conditions that we have in
Bird in the
standing.
hand's worth two in the bush,
Uh,
right?
If it means that we have to do the wetland
replication.
crossing and the replication area, then so be it, we'll do it that way. And still stop the construction at the 875 area, build this house and, it isn't enough cost involved to diminish the value of the property by surrendering the standing order that we have at this point, quite frankly.
You wouldn't diminish it because even though Brent said there's always a possibility we may not approve it, that's extremely unlikely.
Yes.
Because that gets into questions of take.
Yeah.
And that's a legal question.
Yeah.
We.
No, I.
Well, that
appreciate
actually
that.
gets into a question of regulatory compliance.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to do with possible changes in the regulations. But Kurt, you're the one who made the suggestion of amending the order so it stopped at the crossing.
Yes.
I was just
Yeah.
reacting to
Look.
that.
Now, if
I didn't suggest that at all. I do recommend amending the order, but only in so much as the commission then makes a decision as to how to adequately protect, i.e. through bonding, that the replication gets done. If they preserve the right to do the crossing, it still would be permitted to do it, but in order to do any type of work on the first lot and construct a dwelling, there would have to be a change in the order, because right now, the order says that the replication, the filling, and the replication area get completed prior to building permit issuance.
So the wetland crossing is directly related to the replication, obviously. If
Right.
Yes,
one goes
because the
to
idea is
other-
to take the wetland soils
Right.
from there,
The
transplant
hydric
them where
soils
their
move over
seeds
there,
stop
okay,
and go over
yeah,
there.
right, so they go together,
Yes.
all right.
Is a small driveway, and it's done after you do the crossing. The crossing is the big part of it. The crossing represents 75% of the cost involved of doing the whole thing. Okay, so it's not that much more, we're better off to just stay with the standing order and do it if that be the case. you
Well,
know.
that makes a certain amount of sense, because if you start at a future point just on the other side of the crossing, you're within bordering vegetated wetlands automatically, you don't have to come in with a new notice of intent.
There's no,
I don't know what to say.
Unless they condition the whole thing.
I don't wanna pay for anything, I don't wanna pay for any of that other stuff. That's the problem, see? I
Between
don't,
you folks.
you know what I mean? I don't.
yeah, no,
that's-
I understand it, I'm
You
just,
know,
it's just logistically, maybe we have to go with a buyer on that and push that in to do that.
What's
I don't know.
What appears to be in the scale at this point in time is either doing the work that right now the order says has to be done prior to the issuance of any type of building permit,
Mhm.
or amending the order so that the order no longer says that, which means amending plans or whatever.
Mhm.
And rather the cost of amending the plans, getting all of that documentation in place is somehow either equivalent, less than, or more than the cost of just doing the crossing and the replication area so that you can keep the permit as it is and just proceed with it.
It's gotta be less to do the amendment.
I don't know. I don't know.
I would think
That's,
It's gotta-
that's why engineers and attorneys and
Because I
construction
wanna,
guys make their pay. They
basically
figure
wanna
those
sell
things
the
out.
other two lots off and let the next person deal with it. I mean, if they can't do it because you guys change your mind and say they can't do it,
Well, again,
Well,
that's not
that's
on,
not the
that's
issue right
not
now.
on the table. That
Yeah.
was just one
That's-
of
yeah.
the options of when it gets thrown off to be 5 to 10 years in the future.
so we don't have the money, Jack, that's the thing, we don't have the money to develop this other thing, that's the problem. We just need to get this going, and we need to sell these other two lots together and let the next person deal with it if they want to. I just can't, you can't talk about just doing it, I can't. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I just.
Is Apple Associates still in business?
I don't think
I don't think so.
We took the
Brian-
last 20,000 from my father-in-law and ran.
Brian
You're
Williams
gonna
still
need another
doing something.
engineering firm.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, we have.
yeah, we'll be using Finocchio from PJF from Wakefield. Okay, well, how about if we file a notice of intent to modify?
Well, again,
Uh,
you don't have to
and-
tell
and-
us anything
no, yeah,
tonight.
I'm
You
just-
can go
Yeah, and
huddle and think
yeah,
about
I'm,
this.
I'm,
and-
I'm
yeah.
kind of just bouncing it off. And at that point, we'll know better on the, with Board of Health, we have to get that dealt, that's actually,
Well, whatever makes
Primary
most
issue.
economic sense to you folks is the way
Yeah.
you should proceed.
yeah,
And
I,
you know
yeah.
what we require
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point.
yes, I do.
So,
And, And we will try and make our case that instead of doing a wetland crossing that may or may not ever be required, is the right approach. And but you know, we were never thinking of going into the wetland. We were saying, you know, we would be, I don't know what, probably about 30 feet away from the wetlands at the end of the, still on the other lot, on the lot B. So we wouldn't be altering or
Encroaching on it.
encroaching on it, right?
Well,
I think-
that's why you have the option
Yeah.
in the possibility of amending the order. If you want to reduce the project down to just what you want to do, we would evaluate it based on the wetlands impacts that that project has,
Yeah.
and not speculate on any wetlands impacts in the future.
But they have to go
That
to Board
is
of Health
one
first.
possibility that you can,
They have to go to the Board of Health. before
well,
they do
yeah, but
anything.
that's,
For the
again, that's,
existing house, right? The septic for the existing house is what we need to go.
Well, yeah, the design that we have on the,
I mean, the good news is that our permit and the plans that are referenced in our permit do show a change in the system in that area.
So then have you guys approved the location back
Yes,
here?
yes.
The distance is fine everywhere?
Yeah, but
yeah, effectively.
that
yes.
doesn't mean anything because you have to meet the Board of Health's
Right.
requirements.
No, but
And like I
that's,
said, we get off the hook by saying that you have to obtain Board of Health approval. And if it substantially revises the plan, then you need to file a revised plan
Right.
with us.
no, okay, because I keep feeling like I'm bouncing back and forth between her.
Well,
Well, that's
you know,
just because you haven't
that's
got
the
an
nature
answer
of the
from what the Board of
business.
Health requires, that's all.
Yeah, that does, yeah.
She's saying that the distance isn't enough here, but you guys are approving the 50-foot buffer, no?
Again,
Okay.
we don't have that purview. We just say it needs to meet their regulations and gain their approval. If they,
Yeah.
I mean, if you come back to us,
Yeah.
and I doubt this would ever happen, if you come back to us and they're telling you that you've got, I mean, first of all, this wouldn't happen because this is a property line, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah.
So they're not gonna tell you to put the system over there and put it closer to the wetlands and the
No.
intermittent stream that we're concerned about.
Right.
But they might tell you, you've gotta shift it, 10 feet that way. We're gonna say, fine, we don't,
Yeah.
you shift it
Yeah.
a little bit in the buffer zone, we would just look at
Yeah.
that as sort of a field modification, not anything that needed a new permit. We just know that it was anticipated that was the area, and I believe they did some soil evaluations, and so they had identified that as
Yeah.
a potential area
Yeah.
for a
It's been
subsurface
perked
system.
and the perks
Yeah.
are fine, that's all done. It's
So if the
just,
configuration changes, if
Mhm.
it goes to being
Yeah.
long and skinny or something like that,
Mhm.
just come back and show us what
Yeah.
it's working out to be. If it doesn't get any closer into sensitive wetland
Mhm.
resource areas, we'll just look at it as a field change and just say, okay, show that on the as-built plan.
Yeah.
We're not gonna
Okay.
make you go for a new permit because it becomes long and skinny when before it was short and fat or, whatever.
Okay, well, I thank you very much, we appreciate the input, and we'll be back. I'm sure we'll be back.
May I ask you one question? Have you had any recent conversations with your wetlands consultant?
I sent her an email to get you the monitor report and pictures.
Okay,
Yes, so you can have them when you
okay,
come
I
over.
hadn't heard anything, so I just wanted to touch base
Honestly?
with you.
I just did it before we came here because
Okay.
but I had, every day I wanted to do it.
Yep. No, very good.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you for that.
okay. I actually have it in my phone because I sent it to myself if you want to see that I did it.
Okay, great, well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks.
may have dropped back, or I bumped it up, but I didn't change it.
Or you can give it enough time. We're okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
You sure?
Oh, yeah, I just noticed it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, I
noticing it a little bit
just
too.
put my hand.
Yeah, I know, I was wondering.
Yeah, those,
Done the windows.
those windows. All right, the
Father-in-law just.
next agenda item,
Fell the other
the
night.
last thing is the request for a certificate of
Hey,
compliance.
trying
You
to
do have a
something
memo
up.
in regards to
Heard
that.
it, Bud, my wife looked at me, I just got in the door, she goes, did you hear that? I go, yeah, I did.
And
And
this
then,
is,
he fell, trying to
this
pick
is
something up.
double-sided.
He was
This
doing
has
this
some
crab thing where
pictures
he's
on
pushing
it.
himself off a chair, and his legs were coming out.
And this is our pictometry overview
Stuff
of the lot.
Yeah. Did you have your hat with you?
Good night.
I haven't read the memo yet.
Just a little while ago, this had an older order of conditions on it as well as the abutting property. And just a short time ago, the commission declared invalid those older orders in order to provide some finality since they had been recorded. This order, which the commission saw, and I think it was supposed to be issued by the previous agent, but when I came on board, it was discovered in an unissued state due to, I guess, her termination of employment. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. She, I believe, left for another. Well, I actually don't know anyway. Anyway, this is sort of an oldie but goodie, in a sense. Just recently got the as-built plan, which does meet all our standards. There was, most of it was driveway configuration that was in the 100-foot buffer zone, the bordering vegetated wetlands. The only real change in substantive change in the driveway is that instead of elevating it and putting a culvert under the end of it where it's closest to Haverhill Street, they graded it down so that it's actually flush with the surface. So stormwater just runs over it as it makes its way down into the wetlands and the intermittent stream. At least I believe that's an intermittent stream that's there.
So the driveway was raised so that there wasn't a crossing culvert below it, is that what you're saying?
No, the driveway was
Oh, right.
proposed to have been elevated
Yeah.
and incorporate a culvert
Oh, and
down
they
close to
lowered
Haverhill
it.
Street,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
they, yeah,
Okay, got
they
it.
lowered it, and basically, so the grading adjacent to it, both upstream and downstream, or up gradient and down gradient, is the same level, so stormwater just flows right
Just
across
sheet
it.
flow right across?
Yeah, it doesn't get any concentrated flows or
Mhm.
anything. There isn't a swale there or anything like
Okay.
that adjacent to the roadway. It's just the way the grading of the abutting properties are, that's where water flows.
So your recommendation after doing a site visit today and discussions, the party involved in switching signs around, which he's agreed to do on the post, is that?
Yeah, I just need to go out and verify that they've been switched around.
You may wish to consider issuing a complete certificate of compliance for the above listed ongoing conditions contingent on a field inspection to verify the mounting of the signage. Anybody have anything further to add to that?
No, I would second that.
All right, we need a motion first.
I'm not motion, excuse me.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, none? Unanimous. Great.
Just to let you know, now, in this particular instance, I guess this may have been old agricultural land or whatever, so it's been filling back in. So from the plan here, you can see that the actual edge of undisturbed vegetation is out away from the proscribed 25-foot no-cut, no-disturbance zone, which is configured for 25 feet and hugs the wetlands delineation of 1997. So I was asked today because, like any old pasture, or at least a lot of the old pasture land that I see here in Raleigh, it's getting overrun with bittersweet. And there's cherry trees and stuff in there, as well as even some of the big mature pine trees and oak trees have got bittersweet growing up them. So Mr. Ikabachi was asking me today about that, and I said, well, as long, my understanding with the commission is that the commission would allow specific invasive species control to occur as long as there wasn't wholesale clearing of the buffer zone. If they wanted to actually clear that buffer zone, there would need to be a filing. He's trying to sell this lot, so it's not necessarily going to be something that he'll be involved in, but he said he just wanted to know because any prospective buyer may ask him, because the trees are getting overrun with bittersweet. So I actually went through sort of the specifics with him of bittersweet control, about cutting the vines, doing it when things thaw out and the root systems get active, so you can buy paint-on herbicide and paint it on to the cut stems to kill the root systems. I hope I wasn't speaking, but my understanding from working with the commission in the past is that you wouldn't necessarily, for private property owner, you wouldn't necessarily require a permit from them to do that.
I would think so.
And there seems to be a fair amount. As I was trying to explain to him, I said, if you go in there and you cut down all the native vegetation just to get at the bittersweet, I said, all you're going to do is release all the bittersweet that previously has been being held back by not getting sunlight from the shade. So I said, actually, that would make your bittersweet situation worse instead of making it better. So you'd really be more well-advised cutting the vines that do appear to be harming the trees and then painting the stems once we get into springtime, when the root systems, thaw out, and then the herbicide would go down into the root systems. So I hope I didn't overspeak or misspeak to him.
I don't think so.
Okay, great. There. Thank you very much. This isn't down as a specific agenda item, but I just wanted to touch base on it in terms of administrative progress. And this is the Bradstreet Farm Conservation Restriction, which has been being worked on by Mass Audubon. It's at the stage where it will probably be coming back to us at the next meeting for actual signing. It's gone to the state, been reviewed by the state. And recently, Massachusetts Audubon Society went over to Bradstreet Farm and started doing their on-the-ground survey work to put together a baseline report, which is recommended documentation. And so when they did that, they discovered that the commission had allowed the community garden to expand. And so in the sheets that were passed out to you tonight are a black and white document and then a color overlay of the aerial photo as to what I believe is a suggestion for depicting the fact that the community garden has been allowed to expand outside of what was its original surveyed area, because of the placement of the stone wall and the fact that that hedgerow kind of made it useless for them to put a row of garden plots in that was anticipated originally. The commission in 2010 allowed this expansion. When you're looking at the sheet, it's on the right-hand side.
That's still common property though, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's within the conservation area.
Yeah.
That's how this falls under the purview of the commission
Yeah.
and falls under the conservation restriction. And so the yellow line that you see before you tonight is what is proposed as being an exhibit that will be referenced in the conservation restriction document that should allow for possible future expansion. Although it doesn't show you the topography and the fact that the ground is sloping away, it was configured to be greater than the area that could possibly be used for garden plots, just to allow the opportunity for expansion. In my walking the site out there, I would anticipate that maybe only 2 more rows of plots. And as it is, the expansion that we allowed did not go all the way towards the recreation parcel, again, because the topography started dropping off and sloping more severely. So the commission had allowed an expansion, I think it's of 10 plots here, 2 by 5. Just the point we were talking about right here. In 2010, we allowed expansion of these, of two rows of 5 plots each. And more than likely, it might be just one other row over here, or maybe 2 rows, again, because the terrain starts sloping in such a manner that it probably wouldn't be that great to try to garden on the slope. But anyway, so just wanted to touch base with the commission tonight. I'm sort of just looking for your consensus that that we're incorporating into the conservation restriction an adequate amount of breathing room for community gardening activities to take place. Because we do need to say something. We need to say something about where this is going to occur within the conservation restriction. And I thought this was a very good depiction that Mass Audubon, both the black and white with survey bounds and stuff. I think it provides a good amount of breathing room, and also is legally descriptive enough that it should be acceptable to the state.
Sure.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, seems fine. Now, how easy is it to amend the conservation restriction?
Well, see, it isn't.
I didn't think so.
So that's why you need to look ahead a little bit and think about this now
Right, yeah.
and put it in there, because it really, it isn't something you want to change. That's why you want to allow for a little more room than you think you're going to need,
Why not?
or maybe able to use, just so
Better more than not enough. Yeah.
we have not had any inquiries. Again, this was done in 2010, and we haven't had any of the community garden volunteers or anything come back to the commission and request creation of any more plots. But again, just because, you never can see too far down, into the future here,
Now,
this
do you have a
should be
size
adequate.
limit on the plots?
They came up
They
with
do
the
it.
20 by 20, yeah, they proposed the 20 by 20 dimensions.
I mean, if you had somebody come in and say they wanted the rest for squash or something, whatever wasn't gonna be used, the pumpkin, you don't know what the.
One thing I've learned with this commission is they're always amenable to people coming in and asking questions.
Yeah. I get it.
So, yeah, I guess if somebody wanted to propose some vines that don't necessarily need to worry about the
Well, then
fact
the
they're in
hills
a nice
wouldn't be
level
there, yeah.
plot, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, okay? There's that.
Yeah.
January 15th came and went with no communications from Mr. Danny Roach at 17 Boxford Road about his deer tree stand that's located on Conservation Commission open space. I went out and did an inspection and found that he may have made an attempt to try and take it down, although I'm not sure, but it's so grown into the tree that he removed the straps, but it didn't budge. So I don't know whether the environmental police have wood chisels or whether we need to go out with wood chisels and free it. I took the seat off of it. I couldn't see any reason to leave a padded seat on it. It's supposed to be up there. So anyway, just to let you know where that is. He may have also erected another tree stand that may or may not be on his property because it's, again, on our side of the stream, not on his side of the stream. I will be coming to you later on this spring with a proposal, a quote from a surveyor to remark the boundaries of that property since we've got this ongoing encroachment issue.
Therefore, we're gonna have to get the signs, so.
And that was another reason, yes, for getting the boundary marker signs, yes. I also came back from this long holiday to just to touch base. I'm expecting a phone call for an appointment from Mr. David Levitt of 11 Ocean Avenue about the notice of violation tomorrow. So he left a voicemail for me that he was going to be traveling but would be back on Wednesday and would get in touch with me. So I'll work with him at the commission's direction to guide him towards permitting whatever is appropriate for his situation. And other than that, confirmation from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission that they are evaluating the request to revise the trail map for the network of trails on Hemsley Hills. I hope to hear from them within a week as to whether that's approved for them to do. And I'll let the commission know what the timeline is on that. And other than that, I have no other further business unless there's anything any of the commissioners wish.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we stand adjourned unanimously.